Hi, I'm Lara Burns and I'm Digital Officer for the Scouts. We're the UK's largest co-education youth movement, and we help nearly 500,000 people speak up, play their part and gain skills they need for life. We've got 165,000 volunteers helping us deliver this amazing mission. As many of you have seen, we've seen rapid digital transformation in many areas in the last few months. And today I'm going to talk about a few of the amazing things that have been happening at the Scouts. So digital transformation, it's not complicated, it's just hard. This is a quote I've used over many years when talking about digital transformation, and it always has been hard. But the thing that I've found about the pandemic is suddenly so many incredible things have happened with digital. And from my point of view, it's been pretty easy and it's been actually scarily fast. Suddenly, no one's arguing, why should we do that? What's in it for me? Oh, I don't like Agile, or I just don't understand. We haven't had to organise those complex workshops to get stakeholder buy-in. It's just kind of happened. And when I joined the Scouts almost a year ago, if anyone had told me that some of what we've done would have been possible, I would have just laughed. But we're in different times. What's so exciting for me is that so many of the Scouts' values, which is core to why we're still relevant after 100 years, are really apt in the digital space. Our values of care and cooperation and giving it a go have never been more apparent in the last few months. One of our main challenges really goes to the core of what we're about. Scouting is about skills for life, about adventures, about being outdoors, about campfires and night treks. How on earth were we going to do that with everyone during lockdown? The creativity and innovation from our volunteers has been incredible. And early on, many volunteers started doing virtual scouting. We saw that very quickly and they were talking about it on our Facebook groups. And when we surveyed them back in April, we realised that actually large numbers were doing it, sometimes by trial and error, sometimes with only a few young people attending. But we heard some great stories. I heard about an autistic boy who for the first time actually attended a virtual St. George's Day parade, which was normally the sort of a physical event he wouldn't have been comfortable attending with all of those people. But now he did take part and made his annual scouting promise alongside a load of others on Zoom. The platform has been a massive factor in enabling this change. Because lots of people were using Zoom, like half the world, we actually cheekily went to Zoom HQ and asked them if we could have free licenses for all our local groups. So since the beginning of June, about 85% have signed up our leaders to use that free platform through us. And the advantage of that is that we can set up safety and security features up front. So since June, we've actually held 100,000 meetings virtually with over 800,000 participants. And this is a number that I can't get my head around, 39 million minutes of meetings by Zoom. So one of the other enabling factors that's been really important for us is our content. Within a few days of shutdown, our content team had actually created a portal page which repurposed around 100 amazing scouting activities. It's content we had already spent the last year developing for our online program planning tool. But the page focused on just indoors activities that we knew would work. And we blasted it out on social media, and our Great Indoors campaign provided content to get Scout leaders going with those Zoom calls. Now we're partially going back to scouting face-to-face, depending on regions, but often with restrictions on numbers that we can have at the same time, and obviously also with possible lockdowns coming. So many of our leaders are doing a blended scouting with some face-to-face ones 1 week and some online. It's certainly something that we're going to be developing more this autumn, and we're in the middle of doing user research at the moment to see what that looks like. Another massive challenge for us was really making sure that all our leaders had the right support. We realised that a lot of them were trying to use technology that they weren't very comfortable with. And alongside those innovative leaders that started the trend to go on to virtual scouting, there were many who really needed help and more support. Particularly in terms of safeguarding, we had some early issues using Zoom and getting Zoom bombed. So we quickly put together some basic guidance on our website to help people with security settings that helped keep young people safe. And obviously, as I mentioned, the advantage of that Zoom partnership for those who had made the most of our free license deal is we can set up some of those basic security settings for them. We've also worked with a lot of other partners, such as Barclays and their Digital Eagles. They've helped put out some webinars for us, which had about 500 attendees early on, which really helped with some absolute basics like how to even set up a Zoom account. And we've put together a series of webinars to start building on those skills. A longer term plan that we've also been working on is how we can help support volunteers with the gaps in their digital skills and confidence, whatever their starting level is. And so we've really developed a framework which is based on the skills we think a volunteer needs. And that's got lots of links to curated resources from around the web. Again, this is a work in progress. We're actually hoping to get the work funded, and also really hoping that if we come up with something, it could be something that other charities who have volunteers could also use to help their volunteers with digital skills. As I've said already, the beauty of our Great Indoors campaign was it repurposed existing content, which allowed us to move really quickly because we saw early on the likelihood that schools were about to close. Our massive success on social media attracted not only existing Scout leaders and parents, but more importantly, parents who didn't really know much about Scouting and who we helped provide support with activities that their kids could do alongside homeschooling. They came to our website in huge numbers. We had around 700,000 unique views in the early days. And we started to engage with this whole new audience who might not have ever thought about Scouting for their kids before. Obviously, we're now engaging with those parents. We're doing weekly updates with new content, and they're an obvious audience for us to go back to as we start to bring back face-to-face Scouting. We're also really proud of our Hike to the Moon, which was a digital fundraiser which got Scouts and others collectively hiking to the moon and back. We curated really great user-generated and celebrity ambassador content. And we were raising money for others, which again is a core part of Scouting values. In fact, we raised about 400,000 for children in need and comic relief with match funding. That means we contributed nearly £800,000 in total. That success really shows that we can think creatively in the digital space, again, as well as concentrating on our core values in the physical space, which was therefore about helping others and also going on adventures. Both of those elements really resonated with our current and new audiences. We also then ran in July a Great Indoors Weekender where we encouraged Scouts and others to camp out either outside or in their living rooms around a weekend. We had about 120,000 people virtually camping. And again, we used our website to host content, but we joined that with Facebook Live celebrity ambassador sessions with Bear Grylls and others, and created things like virtual campfires, which was really successful. For our adult volunteers, our reunion usually takes place in the first week of September. It's actually been run since 1921 physically, with thousands of volunteers usually coming to camp at our HQ in Gilwell Park in Chinford. But this year, it was actually 2 weekends ago, we ran it virtually. We got together all of the content in about 6 weeks. With a lot of pre-recorded video, which we ran alongside 9 simultaneous streams, but also with a lot of live sessions, again on Facebook Live, and we had a lot of virtual networking, campfires, and other things like that. We used a huge amount of staff, but again, really a lot of curated content for volunteers. We've had some amazing feedback. And again, although most people really hope that they'll be able to meet back in person in Gilwell Park next year, we have also had requests for a continuation of blended content, which does mean that the content is accessible to those who really can't come and attend in person. So that's something that we've learned from, and again, we'll use in future. So as well as breaking the mold in how our volunteers work with young people in digital Scouting, I think equally important has been the opportunities for us to smash through barriers internally. And this is part of the digital transformation that my team have been engaging with. I think back in January, we would have thought that some of these things would have taken weeks, months, or even years of consultation, planning and debate, but we've smashed through so many things in the last few months. And I really would want to pay tribute to my team for so much of what they've achieved. So first of all, we ran a members call through Zoom. So what, you might think, but we had over 14,000 people joining. I think the world record is about 16,000 on one Zoom call. We thought that was pretty cool, but I guess what was really cool was the fact that SLT, our senior leadership team, were talking face to face to our volunteers from their own living rooms. Previously, we've done road shows and travelled up and down the country, and obviously that was significant costs and time. But now we could talk to them straight, answer questions, and everyone sitting at home. That was our first barrier smashed. Actually, like many people, on March the 16th, we'd planned a trial work from home day because we were worried about what was coming and how our tech systems would stand up. So we thought we'd better test it. We thought particularly that we would want to test our payroll remotely, and March the 16th was the day for payroll. Our finance team were really reluctant and pretty worried about how that would go. Actually, we managed that really well, and as many of you are also doing, that trial day at home has just extended and we've never been back to the office. Barrier 2 smashed. We'd also been planning to roll out Microsoft Teams with a 3-month pilot and extensive training, and we'd also put in budget for external help from quite a costly company to support us. But actually, we've rolled out Teams, like many of you I'm sure have done, in about 2 weeks. We created an internal self-appointed Teams group of champions, and we provided basic guidance. But basically, everyone just got on with it, and we've had an amazing feedback. It's really interesting to see how people are collaborating in ways that I would have never expected before. So barrier 3 smashed. I guess like many charities, we've also had a lot of board and committee meetings with our volunteers. We also have a lot of those meetings out of hours and over weekends because our volunteers need to spend the time outside their working lives. So that previously involved a lot of staff setting up meetings, printing out minutes, often in format to send out in advance. They had to coordinate slides, attend meetings at weekends to take notes. So quite honestly, no one really liked that setup. The prospect of how we could move to something else was pretty daunting. But guess what? Now we use a software tool to run meetings digitally, and they're actually often shorter, more to the point. We don't send out printed material, and we're moving very rapidly away from those weekend meetings because people can fit them in after work and with no need to travel. We've actually just, again, the last couple of weekends, held our first ever formal AGM virtually with voting and recording via Zoom. So another barrier smashed. One of my personal biggest challenges, I've actually had 5 new team members starting since lockdown in March. And that's mean we've had to really think differently about how we could induct and onboard new people to be as effective they can be, and supporting them and welcoming them and making sure that they really feel part of our team. That's been no small feat. Lastly, I think I would say, as again, most people are finding, we're in the middle of this change. We don't really know how it's going to pan out. And for me, that's been a fascinating time, which has really made us all stop and think about what we're doing. It's made us ask questions of ourselves, like, are we really delivering what we should be? How can we save money? I'm sure many of us are all fighting for financial survival at the moment. How can we use digital to do what we're doing better or more effectively? And what's changed in that digital space now with our users that there's no going back from? I'm sure you're asking many of those same questions right now. We're certainly seeing some interesting things developing already. We're figuring out this whole new delivery model, as I've mentioned before, how we can blend socially distanced face-to-face scouting alongside digital scouting. We've actually also done a U-turn on our training for volunteers, which has a massive safeguarding and safety element, as you'd imagine. Now we're planning to do pretty much all of that online rather than face-to-face, as we always have done. We're also looking at how we can plan a whole new way of recruiting volunteers and young people, starting with what we've learned from our social media successes. And we're trying to see how that funnel can really change and develop digitally. Having dipped our toe in the water with digital fundraising, something we'd never done before, we're also looking to see how we can develop digital fundraising campaigns. And that's something we're really working on at the moment. Watch this space later in the autumn to see how we do with that. And actually, the other interesting thing, as many of our projects have become digital, we're working out how we can upskill more of the staff across all different divisions and how we can aim to move to more of a multidiscipline product approach with digital capabilities as part of all of our staff's toolkit. And my team are doing a lot of work supporting teams with digital to see how we can upskill them and then effectively pack back out and leave other teams to it. So we're still in the thick of figuring all of that stuff out. I think one thing's clear, never has digital been so clearly part of almost every element of our strategy. So that's a whistle-stop tour around some of the stuff that's been going on at the Scouts in an amazing 6 months. So here are some thoughts on things that we've learned and hopefully we'll keep reminding ourselves of as we go forwards. First of all, don't get distracted. Focus on digitizing your core service, not on the bits around the edges, because focusing on that core is where I think you can provide the real value. And don't think that you can start from scratch. I'm sure you'll have content or tech that you could repurpose or reuse and use in a different way if you really think creatively. And if you've got a volunteer movement, use them, or even use volunteers from other sectors, or use your staff as volunteers to become advocates. Don't try and do it all yourself and do that heavily lifting on your own. One of the most important things, keep checking in with your users, however fast you're doing things. And even if that's just sending out a little survey, getting feedback from a web page, asking them on social media, keep checking what you're doing with your users as you go along. And I would say use this opportunity to move at speed and try things out. Don't try figuring things out for too long or figuring out how things might go wrong. Try it, learn from it, keep improving. My favorite mantra, just do it. That's it from me. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.